US President Donald Trump has labelled Volodymyr Zelenskyy a dictator. It comes after the US and Russia held high-stakes talks in Saudi Arabia to lay the groundwork as they try to bring the three-year war in Ukraine to an end, a war that has left around 1 million people dead. This is what Donald Trump had to say.
Today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine that would have given them almost all of the land, everything, almost all of the land, and no people would have been killed, and no city would have been demolished, and not one dome would have been knocked down.
Joining us is Joe Siracusa, Dean of Global Futures at Curtin University. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. The world has to welcome the fact that there are now serious talks in place to bring this war to an end. But what do you make of the language we are hearing from Donald Trump now, calling Zelenskyy a dictator and also saying that Ukraine started the war?
Good morning. Actually, I'm quite pleased that the president has actually said this. Now, he tends to use hyperbole a little bit, tends to exaggerate. A lot of people do, but what he really means is that Zelenskyy is not going to have an election before this negotiations begin, and both Putin and Trump have reminded Zelenskyy that there hasn't been an election during the military conflict there, and that there should be one to show whether he represents people or not. And so Trump's saying, look, if you don't want to have an election, you're a dictator. And I want your audience to remember this too. And I've been waiting for this to bubble up. You keep in mind that first impeachment all began when some former Ukrainian national who'd become an American citizen, was now a colonel, released that phone conversation Donald Trump had with Zelenskyy back in the day, I think for about, I don't know, $50 million or something. President wanted Zelenskyy to investigate the Biden family corruption scandal in Ukraine. And, these guys go way back. And I'm sure Trump's been waiting to zing it to this guy for a long time. Now, President Zelenskyy said that Trump lives in this world of disinformation, which is sort of shorthand for, he's stupid. The New York Times used to call Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush incurious. And so he really had a go at him. And of course, Trump isn't going to settle for that. So he let him have it. And yes, these negotiations are going on. Donald Trump has by himself effected a revolution in American diplomacy. Putin is in, Zelenskyy is out. The Europeans are out. They've been relegated. NATO has been dying for a while. It's 76 years old, by the way, and it's had no relevance since 1991. And President Trump is correct in saying that this war could have been avoided. I was jumping up and down 3 years ago, reminding people that we were in a similar situation during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. Nikita Khrushchev tried to bring intermediate-range ballistic missiles into Cuba, only 90 miles from Florida, which would shorten the time of a nuclear attack there. Same thing here. And all President Biden had to do 3 years ago was just to pick up the phone and tell Putin that NATO was not going into Ukraine and there'd be no advanced weapons systems in their border during his watch.